What's up, guys? It's Mr. Gaming Counselor here. I'm just doing a quick intro video. I want to say thank you for taking the time to watch this brutally honest review. Over like 3 hours worth of footage with the recordings and the gameplay and all the other skit stuff. A lot of work went into this. Probably my most expansive work I've done so far outside of my sword review. Please be sure to give it a like, comment, subscribe to the channel, and as always, I appreciate it, and I'll see you in this brutally honest review. Peace. All right, let's talk about Destiny. I'm JT. My Bungie tag is Morrow's left toe. Apologies, I didn't comb my bald head today. My goal today is to talk about Bungie's evolution as a studio in a real cross-disciplined way. Now, last time we were here at the GDC, we talked about our Bungie motto. We make games we want to play. Well, part of our evolution of the studio begins with that motto. You see, so instead of we make games we want to play, our new studio motto is we make games. Our previous statement that velocity is more important than quality, that the position of the state of your game can be fixed later, is actually outdated. You see, we've revised our studio mentality on velocity. So instead of rapidly releasing new content and fixing it later, our mentality now is just ship it. Our community will fix it later. Why waste time on improving when you can have free beta testers do it for you? Now, as you can see, Heresy is a perfect example of this, where we shipped it out, people complained, and we have done nothing to fix it, but people are still buying it. Now, here's the last most painful realization for our community, that over-delivery is dangerous. We talked about this last time we were here, that you should beware of over-delivery. You are setting patterns and setting undeliverable expectations. Giving players what they ask is very dangerous. You're setting a pattern. Giving players a good game, again, you're creating patterns. Improving from the failures of previous content like seasons or episodes, or even worse. Don't worry, those beta testers will fix it for you. Creating games that function correctly as a bare minimum, you're over-delivering. Our viewpoint on the matter has actually evolved here at Bungie. So instead of being aware of that over-delivering the patterns you're setting, instead, always expect under-delivery. Surprise them when it actually works. Now, there's been a lot of questions about our player population and why Bungie is even talking to developers at this rate, and especially at this gaming conference. In the first place, well, we're here to provide aspects of how you can survive as a game developer. You're not thriving, but at least you're surviving. We are proud to say that even though our player population is almost non-existent, we just announced our next big expansion that is nowhere near as exciting as the final shape, but we've got our best content creators, our best ball fondlers out there on the prowl trying to drive traffic to bring players back. We use expansions as a way to slapstick a tube into a decrepit body and continue to pump some blood so we can continue to milk as much from our community. In fact, I am proud to reveal our next expansion today. Edging our wallets. That's right, edging our wallets. And when we say our wallets, we mean the leaders of Bungie. The future is about soaking up as much money for our community as possible to edge us to our goal of a new car. Listen, if we're ever going to compete with Pete, we've got to be able to build our own collection, okay? Between you and me, we're going to end up firing about 400 more devs to save some money, and just in time too. We've got enough. I just heard we got another pregnant woman who's going to be trying to claim on her benefits, and we know we can't let that happen. That's right, because if there's one thing we do well at Bungie, is we make as much money with as little effort as possible, because that is the Bungie way. Welcome back to the counselor's office. I'm Mr. Gaming Counselor, and today we check out the brutally honest review for episode Heresy.
Nay, it was heresy.
Heresy, that's right, the last of the 3 episodes. Bungie has claimed the episodes were a natural evolution of seasons.
Let's start with sort of what episodes are at their core, right? I think the easiest way to think about episodes is the natural evolution of the seasonal model.
And hopefully we will never see this horrible model ever again. This episode specifically had a lot of eyes on it. One, because it's based on the conclusion of the beloved Hive Pantheon, which involves obviously the Hive siblings, Ziva Wrath, Oryx, and Savathun. Also, with the year of the final shape having been one of the worst resulting years of content since Lightfall, it was up to Heresy to try to keep Destiny players from hemorrhaging and invested in Destiny overall. Even further, after the failure of Echoes and even Revenants, Heresy was the last piece of paid content that players had left in hopes that their purchase was justified and not a complete waste of money. Especially if you're like me and you bought the deluxe edition, you were kind of gambling and hoping that you'd get some kind of value out of your purchase. But did Bungie actually do justice for this beloved storyline this episode? Did Bungie bring value to this product? Is Destiny saved? Well, that's what this brutally honest review is all about. But before we jump into it, I need to mention this review is specifically around Heresy, the paid product, as this is the episode itself. This review is not including free yearly content and limited events such as Guardian Games or Iron Banner or raid refreshes, and not Rights of the Nine, and whatever else comes out that there may be. Even though I know there's some deluded content creators out there trying to gaslight people to think that a season is everything that included in the season. But here at the counselor's office, we assess and review paid content that consumers can expect with their purchase. So let's talk about the overall theme of this episode. The Hive theme is generally received pretty well amongst the community, and even more so when nostalgia is involved, right? Episode Heresy is chock full of nostalgia. I will say that Bungie does use nostalgia to bait and pull in the Destiny players like it's space cocaine. Oh, nostalgia. Now, you will see more content creators huff and puff the copium cocaine when nostalgia is involved in anything Destiny related. However, I will say this is one of those moments where nostalgia is kind of okay, as after all these years, we're back on the Dreadnought, baby. Listen, for new players, this might actually just be their first time they've experienced the Dreadnought. For veterans, I believe changes were made to the Dreadnought that do kind of give it somewhat of a new experience. In every aspect of the Dreadnought patrol space, it's returned in some way, minus the few mission locations and the Cabal Brother strike, which is missing. Rest in peace, you lovable space rhinos. The theme is the Hive, with the Dreadnought also being taken with like weird tentacles. It's not exactly what I would think the environment would be, but I guess someone at Bungie enjoys their tentacle hentai because there's nothing but tentacles and big glowy black balls everywhere. Let's rip off the band-aid. We know you're going to talk about it. Timegating. Bungie saw Revenant as a complete failure and saw releasing content for an entire act in 1 week versus 3 as the reason they had little success And of course, the mentally challenged individuals who love time gating use this as an excuse for why time gating needs to be a thing for Heresy, even though Revenant failed because it was just bad. It was bad. Funny enough, if you look at the player population, it did barely anything to keep players around. In fact, I'd argue the thing that kept people around was Guardian games, the separate paid product Sundered Doctrine, and the Vault of Glass refresh. If you look at the numbers, time gating has done nothing to improve retention. In fact, with 5 minutes of story each week, there is zero reason to have time gating. Not only that, but Bungie time gated the catalysts for the new exotic and the instances that you need to chase to be able to unlock those catalysts. Like, why? Not only that, but they time gate the vendor reputation, which requires you to max out 2 different sides of progress to do certain quests. Time gating has only served to hide the fact that there isn't actually a lot going on with the story. 2, that outside of the Nether, there really isn't actually much content going on either. Bungie relied heavily on the catalyst to keep players engaged. Overall, I'll say it again. If you need a video game to babysit you because you are unintelligent, incapable of self-control, and habitually online, yeah, you don't want to get spoiled about a video game, that's a you issue. Go get help from a mental health clinician. It's crazy the amount of people who exist who want time gating because they can't stay offline for more than a day or a few hours until they can play it themselves. If you can't stop watching Astacross and you get upset that the story is spoiled while watching him, that's a you problem, dumbass. All right, let's talk about shiny weapons and their adept versions. No, I'm not going to review the weapons here. Check out my Heresy review for that. But I will say the weapons had an amazing aesthetic. Bungie advertised shining weapons as adepts. That is something, if you watch the clip from their live stream, they deceptively talked about shinies and adepts as if they were one and the same. Not once did they show that shinies were separate from adepts.
The previous one on Adamantite, that one was an adept weapon.
Heretical arsenal.
Got it.
Heresy, heretical.
Yeah.
Like, we're going deep into this.
It's not
theme.
theoretical, it's heretical. Love it. Yeah.
You can see that it has a new a different treatment to the colors. It's kind of like the holo foils from Into the Light.
Okay. Yeah.
Not so much exactly that of, hey, it's an ornament, but like this has the base dye and all that, and it looks really good. Shout out to the team. But you can also notice there are multiple perks in each column. There's actually an extra origin trait as well. I'm going to be exploring the Dreadnought and looking for these.
What is worse is that both the Nether and the Court of Blades has horrible drop rates for adepts. So not only are you grinding for a low drop rate of shiny weapons, you also have to add RNG of getting an adept weapon, plus getting an adept weapon that's also shiny. It is a horrible experience. You also are hoping you get the rolls you want when the moons align with Bungie's asshole. Seriously, it's absurd the amount of grinding you have to do and hope for to get a drop. In fact, Bungie made such a massive mistake by splitting adepts from shinies that now adepts are mostly pointless. Who cares about adepts? Adept mods? Who cares? The new enhanced weapon mods not only do similar but even better actions than adept mods. We've gone full circle where adepts have now become power crept and pointless, except raid adepts, which can have up to triple perks. Granted, if you unlock the option in your Mysterium, you can also get triple 3 perks whenever you get a shiny, which makes shinies even better, as they also have an extra origin trait, making adepts pointless. What a brain dead choice from Bungie to split the two in order to create some forced retention grind that no one is really falling for, especially when you get the shiny chance from the Tome of Want and opening public event chests. While we're on the subject of the Tome of Want, let's move into that. Now, in Revenant, Bungie introduced tonics as a way to weapon focus. And not only was this system worse than the Into the Light weapon focusing system, it was absurdly convoluted and overall so bad that Bungie had to buff the time for the tonics. Even worse, the focusing options were bugged and weren't even working. So how does the Tome of Want compare in the new episode in the Heresy system? Well, to be fair, in comparison, I thought that the Tome of Want was bad. And I still do think to a certain degree, but for an entirely different reason now. Let's talk about the good. Tome of Want removes the stupid extra farming that tonics had you do to craft focusing options. Tome of Want is very simplified. The focusing option is very simple between heresy weapons, reprised weapons, armor, material, etc., etc. Then you select the specific gear you want, and then you submit it. It provides drops over time in the Nether, quarter blades, or activities in the game, or you get instant drops in in-game activities like raids, which allows for easier use and guaranteed drops that give you a visual bar showing how much progress you need to get a drop. So what's the problem? Well, one, unlike tonics, which gives you drops based on time, you get a preset number of drops. The drops can be increased with the Mysterium, which we'll talk about later in a while, which tonics, if used correctly, could gain you much more weapon drops than the Tome of Want can. The second issue is the currency. Tome of Want does remove the need of having 30 different currencies like tonics did in episode Revenant. However, Tome of Want still relies on 2 different currencies, sigil dust and sigil stones. I personally do not understand why we need multiple currencies still when we've had into the light weapon focusing that makes it easier to focus what you want. What makes the system worse is that unlike tonic materials, which had a large capacity cap, sigil dust is being capped at 300 and the orbs is capped at 50. Why? I found that I often hit the cap during activities and couldn't use them because I'm already at the gear focusing, waiting to finish out the first rotation of focusing. Then I found out that I'd run out sigil dust as focusing takes 100 each time, so you can only freely focus 3 times before you have to farm for more dust, more materials, or get incredibly lucky for sigil drops to happen, which, by the way, Bungie created 2 different forms of those sigil drops from killing enemies. Why the hell does sigil material slide off the floor and off the map? It's like butter, just slides off the edges. I don't know how many times I've had sigil material just disappear. Or I have to go chasing it across the field to try to get it. Who thought this was a good idea, Bungie? Now, you can use the Mysterium, which again, we'll talk about later. You can use it to improve the drops of sigil material. Yes, you can gain access to stuff much later, and you can actively have to farm, but unless you're spending 100 hours grinding all the different ways to improve the drops, you're stuck with a horrible drop rate. Again, why do we need such asinine currency caps for seasonal materials? I have never played a game that has such a terrible currency system. Seriously, play any real MMO and they have a massive cap for currency. Bungie is just showing us that they can focus more on retention through forced unfun grinds than they have faith in that their game will be fun enough for players to stick around. Like, if your game isn't that fun and you feel like, oh, well, they're not going to stick around, then that's a you problem. Maybe make your game fun enough where people will play naturally. While we're talking about weapons, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the seasonal exotic and the exotic quest weapon as well. Lodestar, probably one of the best episodic weapons this year, and I mean that. It's a primary trace rifle, and it synergizes perfectly with Arc. Something neither Revenant nor Echoes achieved. Not only does Lodestar provide some power to the trace rifle archetype, but it also has a built-in anti-champion capability with jolting. I will say that its catalyst is pretty much just eddy current, which is quite a disappointment, but overall, Lodestar itself is a fantastic exotic. It just hasn't been the center of attention as most people are focusing on abusing bolt charge as much as possible in this episode. But once those mods go away and bolt charge is normalized in use, Lodestar will have its time to shine. Next, we have Barrow Dryad. Listen, it's good, but it's not great. Every time I see people showing this gun off, they're using bolt charge and every artifact in the sun to boost its power as much as possible. And I'm just gonna say it, Choir 1 is still a better exotic mission weapon. I know Titans have peacekeepers, but let's be honest, people are more likely to go into contest mode with Choir of 1 or Outbreak Perfected than they are this SMG. SMGs are not the most viable in-game weapon. I'm not saying it's bad, I'm just saying it's not meta. Can you and should you abuse this weapon in this episode with all the artifact mods? Yes, absolutely. Take advantage of all the big boosts, because for many, this exotic is going right into the vault to collect dust after the episode's over. Just like the Kel's Fall shotgun. I'm still very disappointed with that. Overall, I'm disappointed that 1, this weapon isn't a weapon of sorrow for some reason. 2, it doesn't deal with champions. 3, it provides no actual strand synergy. It does strand damage, and sure, it has hatchling, but hatchling is trash for endgame. This would have been a great opportunity for Bungie to introduce an exotic perk that applies unraveling rounds on its own, since most avenues without artifact mods are pretty rare to apply unraveling rounds. In fact, we've seen what happens when you boost a perk like destabilizing rounds, which just applies volatile round 24/7 now. I will give Bungie a A+ for making the Destiny version of the Cycron, which you see in Warframe. I do find it funny, though, that Bungie alluded that this weapon is a precursor, as if we'd get another weapon similar to this. I'm not sure if that's a hint for a future weapon or future models. If Bungie has just been being Bungie and just saying whatever comes to their mind for no purpose whatsoever.
There are going to be player questions immediately of like, when you're talking about blight and those sorts of keywords, is this a weapon of sorrow?
That's a great question. It is not a weapon of sorrow. But, you know, I heard another rumor that this thing is a kind of fossilized precursor to a weapon of sorrow.
Interesting.
But I can't, you know, confirm.
Redacted.
That's, yeah. One of our top 3 favorite words.
While we're talking about it, and we're talking about the seasonal rewards, let's talk about the Season Pass. If you forgot about my criticism about Revenant Season Pass, I'll just leave this clip for you. Hey, dude, you want to play some Fortnite later?
What? Are you crazy? Why would it ever be Destiny? Have you seen our battle pass? We got all this cool, sweet stuff.
Oh, Destiny's Battle Pass? I mean, have you seen Fortnite's Battle Pass? Give me a second. Like, dude, there's so much stuff on this Battle Pass. They even got Master Chief is set. It's badass. They're even introducing Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, that's so cool. God of War? We got it, baby. Borderlands? Oh, man, I love playing a bandit.
Well, you see, we got all this cool material. I got this material and this material. It's really nice because I can store it on the pass and I don't have to worry about not running out of space. It's right there. It's very handy.
Whoa, wait a minute. So Fortnite, we have the Battle Pass that has pretty much a bunch of skins, has camo and different cosmetics. But your Battle Pass has material? Like material that you can farm in game. That's what you have. You're paying for material that you could just earn by playing the game itself. You don't have more than like one skin. That's what you're telling me.
Well, we get one skin. We get this one skin. It's really cool. In fact, the helmet, the skin for the helmet gets an alternative skin. It's really cool. It's right.
But what you're telling me is I was right. You only get one skin.
That's jealous that we have such a high population.
Well, first off, you're the one that started a conversation about value, and I was just telling you Fortnite's value. And secondly, I'm pretty sure Fortnite has like times 10 the number, the player base, and active players. Like we're over like a mil. Like, what are you? Are you making $1.50 at this point?
You know what? I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it, okay? You're just like everyone else complaining on the internet about how Destiny's dead. You know what? I don't need you. I've got Destiny. That's right. Who's got you? You do. I love Destiny. I love you. I love you.
What the fuck is wrong with him? I just asked if he wanted to play Fortnite. The fuck? Yes, I absolutely reused a skit clip from the last review. It's ironic because that's exactly what Bungie does to paid content anyways. So the season pass, it was no different. Again, we have a season pass that is bloated with earnable in-game materials, seasonal upgrades like increased XP and Bright Dust, which unlike other games have season passes, you can actually buy with the currency that you earn in the pass. Bright Dust you can't actually use to buy the next season pass. Also, we have yet another season where we do not have crafting, yet we have more deep sight harmonizers than what you can actually hold. Not only can you only store just 5, you can't even put these in the vault. Why? It's a paid material. You can't earn it any other way. So why is there a material cap for paid material? What are we supposed to do if we don't have craftable weapons to use it on? Are we supposed to just let the paid material be deleted as the season passes rotate out? Like, seriously, give me a break, Bungie. Though I do find it funny enough, Bungie learned their lesson this time when it comes to making every weapon in the season battle pass a god roll and removing any incentive to farm for the guns in the future like they did with Revenant. They pretty much gave you like 1 or 2 decent weapons this time for Heresy, but most of it was just garbage rolls. And we got the new Navigator Cosmog set, which I'm not a personal fan of not having like another pirate sailor style set, but it looks like it's Eververse quality, right? It's not like this cheap stuff. It actually looks like they put time and effort, so you are getting your money's worth out of it. Instead of the dumpster fire armor sets we get for paid raids and dungeons, overall, if you are a new player, returning player, or a casual player, the season pass will be a boon to you because it's stuffed with material you may be lacking. But for people who actually play the game a fair amount of the time, you'll find the season pass not worth it and over bloated with material and other things that are just why. Ah, yes. We did mention the Eververse store, so you know we're going to talk about the growing shopping mall this episode. But before we talk about MTX, let's talk about the reason why MTX is not acceptable in this game currently. That's right. Let's talk about the fact that episode Heresy continues the trend this year of the game being increasingly unstable, unplayable, and overall buggy. Error, dominated mess. We have bugs that are not allowing people to even access content like 0 hour, all the way to Core to Blades hard locking because bosses are not spawning. In fact, the game is so buggy, we've recorded every bug possible this episode. Let's do this.
Freak show, turn the club to a freak show, turn the club to a freak show, turn the club, yeah, we turn the club to a freak show. To a freak show. Eating rotten apples, dirty bass that be coming at you. Roller coasters like a supernova. I'm the ringmaster, this my tabernacle. See you screaming, I'm like, what for? Oh, you pop? Yeah, I got popcorn. I haven't wake up on the wrong lawn, so we won't stop. It's a lost cause. Take a look through the peephole. Yo, everybody's getting geek, bro. Stop the hate and let them leaks know that we turn the club into a freak show. Turn the club to a freak show. Turn the club to a freak show. Turn the club, yeah, we turn the club to a freak show. to a freak show.
Oh, but wait, if you need more reason not to give Bungie your money for MTXs, let's not talk about the fact that this game has more downtime between weeks. Barely any content is being released. You would think that Bungie was releasing an expansion with how much downtime we got. Not only that, but if you noticed, we've been getting a lot more one moment clips that have been going around as often as we got during episode Heresy. What's worse is that there have been so many errors popping up in this episode that it has made it to where people literally could not launch the game without crashing.
From the creators of Destiny comes an action-packed adventure that ends in complete failure. As one man must stand up for humanity against the feathery world-ending terrors of errors. That's right, Bungie presents Errorcode Chicken. Back at it again. From the creators of Errorcode Chicken comes another waiting room simulator adventure where one man must once again fight against the terrors of errors, but this time the error has fur that makes you go brr. An Errorcode Weasel. Just when you thought they were done, Bungie can't help but let you down more with another error-filled adventure with one man going up against the purple fruit of doom, an Errorcode Plug. And when you want them to stop making sequels, Bungie brings out the worst for last, as this summer, one man must do it all over again and fight for humanity against the buggy evil and Errorcode Centipede. Seriously, fix your damn game.
If that's not worse for you, Bungie has done little to make sure that Destiny is running correctly. Not only that, but they released Rights to the 9 early. They even released Act 3 Sunless Cell Strike early. Like back to back, they're releasing content at the wrong time. It's almost like they put little care and attention to make sure that Destiny is getting what it needs. It is absurd how little love and dedication that Bungie is giving their current game. Like, I guess they're going to put more love in Marathon. Who knows? But what we can expect from Bungie is that they've made it clear that their expectations are very low for Destiny. It's pretty sad when delivering a functional game is considered over delivery. But here we are 10 years later, Destiny 2 running worse than Destiny 1 ever did. I'm sorry, but if this is how Bungie treats content with Marathon at release, I'd hate to see what the paid Frontier content will look like with Marathon actually being released. It's very obvious Destiny 2 is now being treated like the unwanted stepchild, and everyone who loves the game is now being punished and forced to be free beta testers for a game that Bungie clearly doesn't love anymore. Because if you truly love something, you want to make sure it shines and not stinks like a pile of shit.
That is one big pile of shit.
Now it's Fortnite 2.0. More effort went to the Eververse store than the functionality of the entire game this episode. From adding the new cash grab trails, the new wings, to the Star Troopers running around. Funny enough that Bungie would collab with Star Wars, considering it's another franchise that's currently failing and dropping the ball with their community. Boy, I can't wait to be able to play as the Hawk 2 girl in Destiny and spit on that thing. I mean, they might as well. We already have everyone who buys MTX cash grabs or is spitting on Bungie's thing. You can always expect Bungie ball followers to support Bungie even when the ship is burning. I said this in episode Revenant, I'll say it here. I support MTX in games that are free to play. Destiny is a free to try with season and / episodes being paid. When the game itself, including paid content, is not working, There is absolutely no way in hell anyone with 2 brain cells and self-respect as a consumer as a logical human being can actually or should support $1 billion company with 10 years of experience when they can't even meet the bare fucking minimum of making sure a game is working smoothly. We aren't talking about Skyrim levels of haha, that's a funny bug. We're talking about 10 years of we've had time to learn from our mistakes, but we're going to continue to treat the game and act like we're Jar Jar Binks programming our game. Bungie has done nothing to warrant any form of monetary support. And if you do buy MTX, yes, you are the problem. You are the people who are ruining the game. Yes, you are the reason Destiny is in the state it is. And before you say, oh good, I'll just keep buying more from the store, just remember the player population is dying. So sit and rotate on that. But what a perfect segue, right? Let's talk about player population. How does Heresy fare in the player population department? Well, it had a worse launch than Revenant did, but it does hold out a little bit more than Revenant, which is great, right? Well, when you actually look at previous seasons, it's actually not good at all. It's hard to praise Heresy when the trend of players hemorrhaging is still happening to a dangerous degree, especially with less hype for Frontiers than the final shape. It's very obvious why Bungie is putting all its eggs in the marathon basket, because Destiny 2 has run its course. I imagine Destiny 2 will still be treated like how Halo Studios / 343 Studios is treating Halo Infinite. It's getting small updates to just coast by with a very low player population while focusing on the newer projects. And it's sad that that's exactly what's happening to Destiny. Bungie is no longer attempting to bring in new players into the Destiny world. Actions mean more than words. Bungie has yet to provide a dramatic overhaul to the new player experience. They've yet to focus on the very foundation of Destiny, hence all the functional issues. The player population will never go back up to the extent that it was.
No. It's not true. That's impossible.
Search your feelings. You know it to be true.
We are seeing lower population numbers than the year of Lightfall, and that year was noted as one of the worst in Destiny's history outside of year 1 of Destiny's launch. Heresy by no means has saved Destiny, nor has it stopped the downward trend Destiny's going in, which, let me make this clear, I love Destiny, and the last thing I want to see is that it dies. And no, I'm not the reason the game is dying. The game is dying because it's Bungie. The driver is literally taking the Lambo and driving it off a cliff. I'm just the passenger trying to have a good time. Now let's dive into the artifact mods for episode Heresy. Season after season, there's been nothing but bad mods. We've had maybe one solid mod, and sometimes that's all we get. Artifact mods over the past few seasons have been overwhelmingly boring and very mid in regard to the actual build crafting capabilities. However, episode Heresy has actually brought forth some of the best artifact mods we've ever seen. I'm not talking about particle deconstruction. We know that's good. I mean, it's amazing for the ability to kill with fusion rifles like it's nothing. I mean, we've got actual amazing build craft potential for Arc, to Strand, to even Void. Not only that, but mods have allowed you to feel like you're playing Prismatic without actually having to play Prismatic. Now, I did say that I thought Arc wasn't going to be as strong at the beginning of this episode, and I still believe that after all these artifact mods go away, Arc will still feel much weaker and not as exciting. That's how good the Arc mods were. Bolt Charge is going to massively feel worse without the boost from the artifact, but that's okay. The reason for the artifact mods is to boost the potential of builds and to have strong power moments that only last for a period of time before being rotated out. Finally, Bungie has reached the true potential with artifacts in the system. I still believe we should get more artifact slots. It's a much bigger selection in episodes, and it doesn't really matter since the episodes will, cease to exist. I don't know why we can't have more slots to kind of play with the artifact a little bit more. I will mention that Bungie has made some good, mods, even for trace rifles. Probably one of the weaker weapon types are actually very viable now in in-game. Wait. Hold up. No. You can do ad clear with a rocket now?
What is up, guys? It's your boy, Rick Kakis.
Like it's a stupid thing to do now because the mods make it actually feasible. While we're also talking about mods, let's talk about the new seasonal mod system Bungie brought with episode Heresy. These mods are known as fragile mods, as they're gonna depreciate at the end of the episode. These mods are both seasonal heretical weapons and for your ghost. The ghost fragile mods allow you to focus which boons drop from Nether. We'll talk more about that later, allowing you to increase the potential of your specific builds in your runs. The fragile weapon mods not only overcharge your seasonal weapons, so they receive the overcharge effect, which gives a 25% increase of damage to surge focused activities like raids, dungeons. It also gives special effects ranging from causing your weapon to spawn blighted seekers to stunning certain champion types. I love this. Not only does this give a small boost to seasonal weapons, but it also provides another outlet to deal with champions when the artifact mod doesn't cover a specific weapon type, which has been one of my biggest complaints with the artifact mod system. This allows more freedom to play, though I'd actually just rather all weapons have access to mods, but we know that's never going to happen. Even though it's a small introduction, this kind of seasonal improvement that Bungie should absolutely continue to experiment with and explore, especially if it gives weapons cool abilities. Imagine weapons giving abilities like Risk Runner, being able to chain lightning, or giving non-arc weapons the ability to blind enemies with every kill. I'm just shooting random ideas, but this gives Bungie more avenues to experiment, and I hope they do. All right, let's talk about it. Heresy's progression system is a little different from previous seasons. See, the Shaping Slab, this season's vendor, has a unique reward track for each Taken path you select. That's right, we get to become Taken. Kind of. When you interact with the Shaping Slab, you get to see yourself as a Taken Guardian, but it doesn't actually translate to anything outside of the Shaping Slab. There are two progression tracks, Ambition and Resolve. And unlike previous seasons, you can actually, you can ignore, not care about those rankings. You actually have to care about both tracks. As not only do core missions require you to be at certain rankings, you need to be certain ranks from both mastery tracks to complete side quests and even the Borrow Dyad exotic quest catalyst. As both sides unlock a special track reward that you need to unlock runic options. I feel like this is a horrible choice, as it's obvious a forced way of keeping you playing the game. It's retention bait. Granted, you could grind out heresy activities to reach the ranks needed, or you could do the seasonal missions on each character for sizable vendor rep, but overall it felt very grindy for the sake of grinding and not for the factor of fun, which is something Bungie continues on from previous failed episodes and even seasons. Episode Heresy also offers permanent enhancements in the form of runic enhancement, which gives your character buffs that apply to the seasonal activities, and the Mysterium, which increases the boon stacks received. There's also a total of 40 other unlocks. Runics require you to spend sigils to unlock, and the Mysterium is earned by collecting buffs in the form of Nether and Quarter Blades. These are they're called scrolls. And you get these by ranking up the Shaping Slab in Eris's apartment. Bungie did a better job of making Mysterium and runic enhancements not feel like a chore, as you'll be able to complete these naturally by just playing the activities. In fact, unlike other vendor reputation, you could go through the entire episode without interacting with any of these seasonal upgrades. You really don't have to go out of your way. Bungie didn't make the same mistake as tonic recipes, as if you hover over each Mysterium scroll, it clearly tells you what you need in order to upgrade that specific perk and unlock that specific scroll. The problem is that for some people, the Mysterium upgrading and the Tomb Primer quest is also bugged and it won't let them progress. Good job, Bungie. Here I was thinking we could go through a section with some praise on improvement, but we couldn't do that without you breaking something. All right, and here we are talking about our activities in Episode Heresy, the things that you get to do when you buy Episode Heresy. Let's start with the Nether.
The Nether.
The Nether itself is different from other activities, and that the player groups of other people, and they have limited revives. Health regeneration is disabled, meaning that players do not have passive healing after being out of combat for several seconds. Instead, enemies will drop white orbs that give back health and other healing effects such as support frames, auto rifles, warlock healing rifts, and the void devour buff can still take effect. Special and heavy weapon drops are also significantly reduced in this activity and can only be affected by weapon perks and armor mods, and shooting destructible pots to find more ammo and healing orbs. First off, let's talk about the health regeneration. This was a very big point of contention for the community. So as you had a large population that does not enjoy natural health regeneration being disabled by a very vocal majority, while you had veterans and content creators vehemently defending it. Bungie tried to defend the choice as an attempt to mix things up and provide an avenue for other builds to shine, such as support and healing builds, which at release was an absolute lie. Release, the Nether was one of the worst experiences anyone had, as nothing healed you except for things that Bungie deemed were out of bounds. The Crimson Hand Cannon, for example, would heal you at full health every time you killed something, but when you tried to use a healing rift, it would barely move your health. It's almost comical because live in front of the whole community, Bungie admitted that they play tested the Nether multiple times and felt that the Nether wasn't a good place.
It's also good to know in the health regeneration aspect, the gameplay and sandbox team has tuned a lot of the abilities and weapons that do heal players, so they're not extremely overpowered. So there's been a wide tuning pass on all of this entirely, so you're gonna see when you're trying to heal up your teammate with one of our new support auto rifles. Yeah. It's gonna take some time, but it does work and it is very efficient and very helpful. Sandbox team has tuned a lot.
Who play tested this? Christopher Barrett? Was he way too focused on sexually harassing the other play testers? Anyone who logged in and played for a few seconds of the Nether knew immediately that the Nether was not in a good spot. In fact, the community was so outraged about the state of the Nether that Bungie changed it and made healing better almost immediately. Of course, it made a few veterans and content creators upset that the overall community wanted this change to happen. But what about the objectives of making other builds feel better? Giving support builds a chance to shine.
It's kind of healing things, but in a lot of the game, like I can just hide behind a box and heal, right? And here you can see our health isn't regenerating. So we need to really think about, maybe there is a dedicated healer on your team. Maybe there's multiple allies using healing rounds, right?
Yeah, honestly, that build crafting is kind of transcending now.
Well, after spending 100 hours in the Nether playing and exploring and going through the expert mode, I can tell you right now, it failed. It did absolutely nothing to change the way people play this activity. It's funny. The best way to avoid losing health in Destiny, go figure, is just using what was already the strongest builds to kill everything as fast as possible before they killed you. Who would have thought? But what about all the other modes? Bungie introduced 3 modes for the Nether: Explore, Advanced, and Expert mode. Can you guess what the difference between these modes are? Put in your answer down below. If you answered absolutely nothing, you are correct. Now, there is a few differences in all seriousness, but nothing that distinguishes them. Advanced mode is your most basic mode that allows matchmaking, and it will have you complete 3 encounters per 3 rotations with a random wipe mechanic that spawns in between completing encounters in each rotation. I'm gonna say this now. There is really nothing challenging about these. It just makes you travel across the activity and kill or shoot more things. I have actually never failed the wipe mechanic. I wasn't for sure what it did, so I just failed it on solo by myself, and it just kills you. It uses up your tokens. That's it. You used 1 token for each person that was killed. Wow, that was challenging. You can actually just ignore them if you have a lot of tokens. That's how easy it is to deal with. Expert increases the difficulty of enemies and adds champions to the activity. I'm going to stop and point out that not only does champions not reward you tokens, but champions have absolutely no impact on your score or whether or not you get plat or not. Killing champions does nothing to improve your rate of adepts. Champions have 0 reason to exist, and most of the time you can either ignore them or you end up clearing the encounter fast enough before they even spawn and you just end the encounter. I feel like Banes had more of an impact on the gameplay than champions did. Why bother include them? Lastly, we have Explore mode. When you hear the words explore, most people think of some kind of free roam mode, right? Wrong. Not only does Explore mode not actually let you freely explore, you guessed it, Explore mode doesn't let you go outside the bounds. It has 0 change from any other mode except for 2 things. 1, you have more tokens. Wow. 2, you don't have to deal with the mini wipe mechanic. That's great, Bungie. Thank you. I'm really hyped for this mode for these solo players out there that didn't even bother balance the enemies or even balance the health. That's right. So how are you expecting solo players to deal with this? Let me tell you, the Tormentor boss is one of the most annoying enemies to have to face solo because not only do you have reduced heavy ammo, not only do you not regen health, not only do you have to make sure that the Flying Grim aren't healing the boss back up, it is truly a miserable solo experience in Explore mode when all you want to do is explore the Dreadnought for secrets, but you can't even do that. You have to complete each encounter in order to move up to the next rotation in order to explore the next area. Explore mode is so bad that you end up playing loading simulator.
All right, let's see. Did I load into the fonts? No, I didn't. All right, let's just reboot this. Okay, seriously? Again, this is not the fonts. Again, this is not the fonts. Bungie, why? Why is this like this? This is not the fonts! This is not... Oh my god! I don't need the hall! Stop giving me the same area! No! I don't need this! No! Fuck! No! Fuck! Fuck! No! Fuck! Fuck! No! God damn it! I give up. Fuck this game.
You end up wasting so much time not even playing because you're loading in and out for a specific location, or you end up leaving after 1 rotation if you didn't get the right one and you didn't get the right area in the second part of the map. Explore is so bad that Bungie introduced a new part of the Nether in Act 3, the Hall, which has more secrets and collectibles needed to further unlock parts of the exotic SMG Burrow Dryad. You wouldn't know it existed because no one could get access to the area because it wasn't a starting point, and you had a very minimal chance of having it as your second or third map location. The community was so outraged that Bungie made this the spawn point for an entire freaking week, which made the situation even worse, as people who needed other locations now had to play RNG roulette to access the rest of the map. In fact, Bungie fucked up so bad that the community ended up forcing Bungie to finally put resources into making where you can actually start in any location instead of spending hours running around hoping to get the location you actually needed and wanted. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why not just make it to where people can't fast travel? That would have been a simple solution, wouldn't it? Well, that would make the most logical sense, but per Bungie, they don't have the resources to do that because, you know, beware over delivery. But wait, there's more. Not only was trying to find map locations so freaking bad that it even made target lock, the Callus, such an RNG retention bait dumpster fire that people end up holding portals to help other guardians, and others found ways to get out of bounds to get access to the chest. Of course, Bungie is praising the community for doing their work by saying, good job. We're so glad that you guys are helping each other out in this hard time. You know, Bungie themselves should have fucking done that in the first place. Players shouldn't be doing charity giveaways when it comes to gaining access to parts of the fucking game they paid for. Not only was it RNG based to get the whole map to get access to the Callus, but you first need to collect very specific collectibles, which there is absolutely no way to track which ones you have or do not have. And yes, these secrets are RNG based. Yes, whenever you load up the Nether, each section has randomly rolled secret spawns. Instead of all secrets being available, it's RNG which ones will spawn. So if there's one very specific secret that you're looking for and it doesn't spawn, you're SOL. For instance, so there was one very specific secret that spawns in the founts that requires you to find a button that is harder to find for the Destiny community than a date on a Friday night. Not only do you need RNG to get access to the font location, you also needed the RNG of the secret button to spawn to get access to a maze that gives you the secret collectible that you need for the ability to access the Callus chest. What's worse is that the RNG rate of the secret button to spawn is like 3%. It's so incredibly low. I spent 2 days farming and never got the button to spawn. All of this, by the way, in explore mode. I hope Bungie never does this shit again. I'd rather take a cactus up the ass and torture myself than play this kind of gameplay. This is the kind of stuff that turns new players off. This is also the kind of stuff that turns players who play the game already off. Like, this is some of the worst retention bait tactics I have ever seen. And I do not believe for a second that Bungie did this accidentally. This was planned as Act 3, as there was nothing going on in Act 3. So yes, this RNG secret hunt was intended to keep players engaged with the game as long as possible. You'd think Bungie would learn that good gameplay will keep people around, but I guess the community shouldn't over-deliver in faith in Bungie to know how to make a fun game. As for the secrets themselves, I find it really cool that there are things to search for outside of RNG, of course. I like the reason to explore the map. I wish Bungie spent more time and effort in explore mode to enhance these experiences. But what about the loot, the effort ratio? How much loot do you get for time and effort you put in? Listen, whether you like the Nether or you don't like the Nether, the Nether has to be one of the most rewarding activities I have ever played. You want to go around opening chests to get loot? You get it. Go for it, buddy. You want loot at the end of every rotation? You got it. Bungie's got you hooked up. Bungie did an excellent job of making weapons rain. Now I know people still want crafting, but the amount of loot you get from the Nether is night and day difference compared to anything we had from the Coil and even from Revenants. The Coil does not match the level of loot you get, by the way. What about expert mode and adept weapons? Let me tell you now, the adept drop rate is an absolute joke. In fact, Bungie even said they increased the drop rate of adepts and expert Nether and Court of Blades for making it all the way to the end. I have seen zero increase in drop rates. In fact, the drop rate of expert weapons is so low that people just speed run the first encounter and reset. And as it's not only the fastest way to complete, but it produces the best results for getting adept drops. It's crazy how stingy Bungie is being with adept seasonal weapons when they are in fact seasonal weapons. With each act, Bungie brought new aspects of the Nether. And when I say new, they introduced new enemy factions. We had Lucent Hive, the Crimson Hive, the Generic Hive, the Dread, and the new Taken. Bungie introduced new encounters in each area. Nothing over the top, but it was nice to have mini refreshes. The problem is that you cannot go back and experience previous act encounters. It hard locks you to the newest one, which for playability really ruins it. It becomes predictable and very boring. In fact, the Nether is best described as the overthrow activity in the Pale Heart. It's a combination of the coil, deep dives, and overthrow. And just like overthrow, it gets old quickly. Listen, there are a lot of people who are huffing the copium by saying the Nether is the best seasonal activity we've ever had, when it's just a glorified public space built on nostalgia of Destiny 1. I'd argue that the Contest of Elders is much better when it comes to an activity. The problem is with that was the loot was hot garbage, and that Destiny 2 players don't know how to read. It gets incredibly old to have to do the same encounters every time. It would be one thing if it cycled between different acts encounters, then we'd have some alterations, but overall everything feels too predictable and samey. Not to mention, if we compared the final boss fights to the Menagerie and Forsaken era, the boss fights were unique enough to keep you invested compared to the Nether boss fights, like generic public event bosses. Again, I spent over 100 hours in the Nether farming for guns, doing the thing that Bungie wants you to do. I can say this is one of those activities I cannot enjoy for long periods of time compared to some other seasonal activities we've had. What about boons? Boons are stackable buffs that enhance your abilities or weapon damage. For example, a boon might increase your ability generation, but reduce your health generation, or might give you a more health but lower your overall movement speed. I'd be lying if I said the best part of the Nether was the boon system. This system originated from the deep dives in Season of the Deep, which was horribly dull an experience. This roguelike experience has been massively overhauled by Bungie, and when I say massively overhauled, it actually does something. There are 3 different boons: minor, major, and corrupted. Corrupted gives you a big bonus while also giving you a big downside. I find that getting heavy armor corrupted boon is one of the best ones, as it gives you more defense for making you a little slower, which doesn't seem to be too noticeable. The worst one is the one that makes you do more damage, but you take more damage. You are actively throwing your team tokens away by using this boon. It's poorly balanced, and that's after Bungie actually patched some of these boons mid-season. Minor boons stack up to 10, and depending on the boons you selected, you can make your build very strong. I had boons giving my class ability energy back instantly. I was able to spam it constantly, and I never had to worry about class energy. Referring to seasonal mods, Bungie made mods specifically for ghosts, which allows you to focus these. We talked about this. That allows you to focus for those specific boons that you want. It's actually really cool. You have control on how you want to play. If you only have that control over where you go in the Nether, that would be great too. Boons overall, I think, are exactly the right kind of interaction that they need to be for them to be worth anything. I feel like they absolutely can keep working on different boons to make them better overall, but I do think the boon system in Heresy is one of the redeeming qualities it has. The Court of Blades, a reimagine of Court of Oryx. And when I say reimagine, I say that because it's more detailed than Court of Oryx was in Destiny 1, which is a good thing, because I know for a fact if Bungie re-released Court of Oryx as it was in Destiny 1 and the Taken King, it advertised it as one of their premium content for this episode, the collective minds would explode. That being said, how does Court of Blades fare? Well, first off, let's talk about the goal of the activity. The goal is to kill bosses. Yes, it's a boss rush, which I will say is pretty badass. Not only is there actually a good variety of bosses to fight, each one has different mechanics that add more detail than just simply slaying them. You've got some bosses that require killing blights to then kill a sword knight, to then use the sword to drop the boss's shield. You've got fights that require you to stand on symbols that are matching the boss symbol, and you are able to do DPS from that specific slot. And while you're doing all this, you're trying to survive a swarm of trash ads that are trying to kill you. A lot of good bosses. Sure, Bungie had to do a pass on the difficulty of the Lucent Hive week. But when we get to the biggest cons of this activity, you'll realize that none of that actually matters. My first criticism, Bungie introduced a new activity and got 3 maps to come with it. And when I say maps, I say that in quotations, as we literally get a section of an IO public space, which Bungie wanted to hype up as, you guys wanted sunsetted content, right? Let's go back to IO's butthole. Then we get a generic ass ice cave that's supposed to be Europa, and then we finally get the derealized boss room, and that's it. Bungie hyped this activity up, but we got like 3 maps. Are you kidding me? Bungie has no problem reusing assets any other time, but the one time where it possibly be okay to freshen up the scenario instead of 3 maps all the time, they didn't even reuse other Dreadnought locations or Savathun's throne, which would make sense, Bungie. It would literally make sense. You make us go do fetch quests in Savathun's throne world and all these other seasonal missions. What do you mean you can only produce 3 maps for this one activity? But I guess putting time and effort into Court of Blades is a lot to ask for, especially when not having a few weeks later, they released Act 3 content, which totally broke Court of Blades, unironically. Yes, Bungie didn't even bother test their own bosses, as one specific box completely hard-locked the entire activity. Not only did it not spawn for you to kill, once you ran out of time, you're stuck, because you're required to kill that boss to wrap up the activity. So you were stuck in limbo permanently until you left the activity completely. What's that? You had 12 bosses defeated? Sucks for you. No credit at all. No loot. You get nothing. But don't feel bad. You barely get loot anyways. I wish I was joking. You would think Bungie would learn that people don't care about activities as much when you don't reward them well enough. Contest of Elders was just like Court of Blades. Fun, challenging, yet the loot sucked ass. What is sad is that it's not just the weapons themselves that suck, because they're actually fairly decent. It's the amount of loot you get. Take the normal mode versus the expert mode. You do a full run of 13, you get about the same weapons. Let's be honest, no one cares about the extra material drops. People want weapons. What is worse is it doesn't matter if you get 13 boss kills or 1. You get about the same amount of loot, as you can AFK farm expert mode and get the same amount of adept weapons. Hell, I even got double adepts to drop AFKing. Bungie did come out and say that they buffed the drop rates of adepts for a full 13 run. Not only does Bungie not give you the actual drop chance of adepts, they didn't even tell us how much they buffed the drop rate. For all we know, they buffed it like 2%, because that seems like something they do. Court of Blades is a massive fail, which sucks because it's actually fun, but it's incredibly unrewarding, and it feels unsatisfying to grind for, especially an hour, you have nothing to show for it. For fuck's sakes, Bungie, can you please remove armor as a drop already? No one gives a shit about the fucking seasonal armor. We have a focusing system for that reason. If people want armor, they can focus farm for it. And it's not even pinnacle level drops. It's generic low statted armor that everyone just deletes. It's baffling how Bungie, after 10 years, still doesn't know how to make something feel rewarding, though we literally have Trials of Osiris revamp and how it just throws loot at you. How has an in-game activity got better loot quantity than a fucking seasonal content that goes away? Now let's talk about the Sunless Cell. That's right, Sunless Cell is back. The nostalgia from Destiny 1 is here. Granted, I wish we got the Cabal brothers from the Taken King as well, as I can only imagine what a Grandmaster experience with that remake would be. But what about Sunless Cell? Generally, I think it's mostly the same as it was back in D1, just more updated enemy types, but it plays out almost bar for bar as it did in Destiny 1, which is both a great thing, but also introduces some significant issues. First off, let's talk about the fun aspect. If you played the D1 version, you know the strike is almost identical, even down to the secret hidden platforms to gain access to the secret collectibles. I think even on Grandmaster mode, I had an amazing time fighting my way through the Sunless Cell with clanmates. A real fun experience personally. I know not everyone is as confident in Grandmasters and may not appreciate them, but as a veteran, I absolutely had a blast. However, we need to talk about the challenge. If you were expecting this strike to be challenging, it's not. And I know that's coming from a veteran, but I think overall the community agrees it's fairly easy. I mean, the final boss is not a cruel, but it's the same knight with a battle axe that moves around slowly, though it no longer goes in and out of pure dark sides of the map because the map is like lit up for some reason. I don't know why Bungie decided to remove the darkness aspect that made it harder to see things. You see them a mile away now. It's supposed to be the Sunless Cell, but you can perfectly see everything. Bungie even mixed up the final boss by making it actually turn it and transform into a hulking Taken Knight, which gives you two bosses back to back. But don't worry, they are both paper thin, and you can use strongholds to block or use a glaive to block both bosses, making them easy to hold in one spot. Not only that, but there's like no ads to face off at, barely at all. I was expecting waves of trash ads and champions and banes. There was a couple champions, but it's very unthreatening in the final part of this fight. It's not a challenge, which is not at all how it felt in D1. You had to be on your toes in D1 or you'd get blown up by Thrall or get slammed by knights, and it would come out of nowhere. Unfortunately, the truth is, as someone that played D1 and now D2 of the version of Sunless Cell, it feels like Bungie just brought back the D1 level of the strike, which if you've played D1, you know we were much weaker then in that game versus D2, where the power level of both Guardian and enemies has drastically gone higher. It feels like Bungie ported over D1 difficulty, meanwhile we are at D2 power level, absolutely crushing this strike. Not to mention there's supposed to be an overhaul, like overload champions, and I've never seen one spawn in the Grandmaster version. Now, I'm going to have a very hot take. I think Sunless Cell is okay being weaker. I feel like the fun factor is there even in the Grandmaster version, but I think the problem is if Sunless Cell was the only Grandmaster that was easier to challenge and to complete, I think most veterans wouldn't have a problem with that. I think overall Grandmasters are very easy in their own regard. I'm not here to get this casual versus veteran war or anything like that, or whether Bungie is making the game too easy or too hard. But I do want to say that Sunless Cell is very fun, though I don't think it justified being the only activity for Act 3. Now we go on to Exotic Mission Derealize. Derealize is a throwback to the classic Exotic Mission formula. Not only did Bungie break the stale seasonal Exotic Mission trend of making the Exotic Mission a core part of the seasonal weekly template, always being the last 3 weeks where you just do the Exotic Mission with generic voice lines added, but Bungie made it a secret. They didn't tease the release of it. They showcased the Borrow Dryad, but they didn't make mention that it was being released as a secret that players would have to go and hunt for. Furthermore, it released immediately in the first act versus waiting till the end to unlock it. I do feel like it was pretty short compared to the classic Whisper and 0 Hour, and the timer is missing to add difficulty. But overall, the mission itself does expand the area of the Dreadnought with a pretty fun but short exploratory section for the mission. The beginning is simple, the Nether with a generic subjugator boss fight. They'll end up either working or soft locking you out because the boss is unkillable. Good one, Bungie. Afterwards, you'll have to solve a mini puzzle that was pretty unique and fun, leading to a small parkour exploration section, which then leads to the final boss confrontation, which is actually fairly unique, with it focusing on two different bosses that flip different sides from taken and untaken, changing the environment around you, which is actually pretty cool. Not to mention, it introduced the terror mechanic, where the giant taken eyeballs are slowly counting down to your demise. Overall, Derealize is short, but is sweet. And the focus on it is dramatically reduced compared to the boring formula Bungie has been using exotic missions thus far. Props to Bungie for trying something to give some semblance of the classic secret mission. It's no 0 Hour or Niobe Labs, but it's definitely a drastic improvement from Kel's Fall and its predecessor in the third act. All right, Mr. Gaming Counselor from the future. That's right. As you can tell, we've got to talk about it because it's only fair if I include everything that comes into a paid product. That's right. Episode Heresy introduced a community event. Now, whether you can achieve this community event without actually purchasing said, episode, I don't know, because, I don't have a free account to check. But I'm going to go ahead and put this in here, knowing that this does involve dropping like Adepts and other things that you can only get by purchasing Heresy. Long-winded intro, I know, but I just want to make that clear. That's why I'm putting this in here. But it would be very disrespectful for me to criticize Bungie and not talk about everything that they have done in this episode, including Chestiny, which I will say it's amazing, right? It's amazing that they finally, after 5 years, before Corridors of Time was the last community event we really had, that we're back at it finally. And we got Chestiny. It's not like some cheap knockoff thing. It's actually a well-designed community event. Very well designed. A lot of effort went into it. Being able to play, you can't play like actual chess. That'd be kind of cool if you could. But you actually get to do these puzzles, and you can replay it even after you've finished it, which is really cool. I like the ability to just have some fun, go into this new little location, try to solve puzzles, get rewards from it. That's fantastic. It did take 5 years, and that is a criticism that I have, is why did it take 5 years? We had Corridors of Time. We also had Niobe Labs, which is another community event. Everyone working together to try to solve this puzzle. From a community perspective, this does not have the hype that Corridors of Time did. Let's be brutally honest. It did not bring masses back. Everyone and their brother was excited to jump into Corridors of Time and play and try to solve the puzzle. Granted, you still had the small dedicated streamers in their community and some raid secrets, and all of them, of course, they're going to partake, right? But this did not change the player numbers at all. It didn't. It didn't move the number. It didn't move the dial. It did nothing to save Destiny, right? Like this doesn't save Destiny. And to be honest, the reward is pretty lackluster. Yeah, we got like a Taken-esque shader. Neat. I'm glad. When we compare it to Corridors of Time, getting a shadow dropped exotic is premium. It is premium. So I would place this above Niobe Labs, but under Corridors of Time. The fact that if people started getting exotic guns from this would have brought more hype. People would have jumped on immediately to start playing. People are like, it's a shader. I do think that this event was amazing. I'm not undercutting it. I'm glad it's in here. This is what Destiny needs. We need more of it. We need more community involvement. And the problem is that the community is so diminished right now. It is so hemorrhaged that this event is really just to those most dedicated players, which is not a bad thing, right? That I think that's, you ask anyone who has been here since day one, they are happy that they're getting these kind of events because this is the stuff that they crave. In fact, we got our own mini ARG for this puzzle, and I mocked Marathon for doing that because the only people who gave a shit about the ARG was Destiny players and no one else. So it's good to see that they translated that into Destiny, and especially for the dedicated Destiny player. And I think that is amazing. I think that's great. I don't want to undercut it. I think the value of like the reward is meh. There's no monetary value gained from Bungie to do something like this. And it gives me a slimmer of hope that there are still developers who really want this game to shine. I just hope that the people who are limiting the capability of those developers are removed from the company, because those developers who actually give a shit, who want to do cool stuff like this, get to do it. And I wish that Sony would fund them to do more events like this. Imagine that every year we got a community event. I would be excited. But that's just my opinion. Back to the rest of the Brutally Honest review. Now, before we leave the activities, there's not like a great place to talk about it, but I'm going to talk about this right now. Bungie used episode Heresy as a place to actually update the Taken enemy type. The whole faction got an overhaul, dramatically so that they actually function almost completely different than their counterparts, which is something that you don't see often from Bungie. Even with like Lightfall, some of the Cabal barely see any differences in the Callous faction. But here in Heresy, you see Ogre spitting out fire. That is crazy and insane and such a great change. It adds a unique amount of freshness that we haven't had in the game. And one of the biggest complaints that why people didn't like the Taken is that they felt very generic and very samey as to all other factions. Whereas I think episode Heresy does a great job of updating this faction and making it stand alone in its own unique fashion. So I did want to shout out and give props to Bungie. I hope they continue this trend to flesh out and alter behavior and what different enemy types do. I would love to see that for the rest of the races. Now we get to the final part, the seasonal missions and the narrative. But before we dive into the bigger focuses, I do want to say that Bungie finally did it. They finally removed Holo projector visitation. That's right, they removed Holo projector visitation from the game. No longer do you need to go back and forth to the helm in between missions. Now Bungie has you visit random objects in the world instead. But luckily, they also improved having Holo projectors and direct character interactions out in the wild. It's really a dramatic evolution of gaming. You know, we've never seen this kind of evolution in gaming before.
Where was our ride home? It's the only way off the ship.
Kendra.
No, Hammond! This changes everything!
Just let me think. Can you access the command computer?
Hunnigan, what happened? The transmission got cut off. Salazar, how'd you...
We've jacked the line.
You're going to find characters like in the midst of a mission sometimes. Yeah. There's some new tech that I don't want to spoil. I want players to see it in the game. Yeah.
I'm sorry, if you were expecting me to praise Bungie for doing the bare fucking minimal of doing what Bungie's competitors have been doing for years, you were wrong. What's worse, it's not like Bungie didn't already solve the story delivery issue before Destiny.
That prophet, Truth, he has the index. You've got to take it from him. Let me get these doors. Go. It'll be easier to track Truth if I stay in the network.
Now let's talk about missions. From Act 1 to Act 3, no, we're not focusing on the narrative at the moment, so we'll save that for a bit. Gone how many years of Bungie continuing to reuse assets for paid products? It's not even a meme anymore how often Bungie reuses assets over and over again. I will say, even though it's contradictory for me to say, I would say that it's more acceptable when Bungie reuses certain assets that aren't even being used at all in the game. Like Year 1 Destiny 2 public spaces, like from the beginning of Act 1, where we make our way through the EDZ to the tower where the cult of Osiris was slaughtered by the Fallen and Curse of Osiris. This area is not being used like at all, and I'm more okay with it being touched, but still not. I'm not really on board with reusing assets. Then we do this cool Ascendant Realm climb as we make our way to the Dreadnought. We fast travel using anchor points, which we never really see or explore again for some reason. Then we make our way into the Dreadnought for the first time, and we run into the Court of Orcs, where we face off against the Taken and the Dread. We literally go through Act 1 to Act 3, doing missions that require us to visit different parts of the Nether with little to nothing different. Act 2, we had Mini Eye Puzzle, which was kind of cool, but very short-lived. We don't actually visit any new location. In previous seasons, we've actually visited new mission areas to a certain extent, but it seems episode Heresy was rushed and couldn't make that happen this time around. Not only that, but instead of having field work like episode Revenant of that side of things, Bungie decided to force you to do fetch quests and field work as a core aspect of the seasonal missions. Now, granted, there were some chore quests that you could do and complete just by simply playing the seasonal activity, and I think that is by far the best route that they should have done the entire time. Some of the best tasks in any video game is the kind that you could do while playing content you actually want to play. But fuck off with all the core chore quests that require you to go some random ass location on a planet to do the most generic ass work that provides no enjoyment whatsoever. Then of course we have Act 3, which finishes us off and going through, and I'm not joking, doing the Lightfall Strike. Granted, it was tweaked a little bit, sure. It wasn't one for one, but it sure wasn't unique or special. The final bosses were 3 Hive Guardians and a copy-paste Taken Knight. It's crazy that Bungie can showcase really cool boss mechanics in Court of Blades, but it can never translate into the seasonal quest missions. Not a single one. But what makes it even more unsatisfying is that the content isn't actually difficulty tiered. It's just generic public space level content. I never once felt threatened or feel any kind of pressure or challenge. I get you want everyone to beat the seasonal missions, but maybe provide some options that give, similar to the campaigns, to do like a legend run for more challenge. And if you complete the legend version of the mission, you get a shiny weapon as an incentivizer for people who may be unsure of the challenge. Then we go to the final mission, the Great Hive War. Listen, it's cool to see enemies fight, but it felt undeserved, and we'll talk more in the narrative later. But overall, you make your way through the entire Dreadnought until you make your way back to the Trenchways for the final battle against one of Savathun's projections, which we fought countless times, and Zero Rasp Proxy Knight, which is just the Pit of Heresy boss fight. Just as a side note, while we're here, why fucking didn't Bungie do something for Pit of Heresy? Literally, the episode is Heresy, and there's a pit for Heresy. No one thought we could do a really cool thing here? Seriously? Anyway, back to the boss fights. They take no effort at all. What is the biggest disappointment is that right next door, where this big final showdown is taking place, is Oryx's main room where we face off in the Taken King. Could have been such a badass throwback. The one time Bungie doesn't nostalgia bait where it would actually matter. Secondly, no one thought about the final fight and the final kill on Oryx being where, you know, in the King's Fall raid. That would have been cool too. Seriously, it would have been poetic to kill him the same way he died in the first time. And yes, I know it's contradictory to what I said about reusing assets, but I think we can all agree that it would have made the most sense to reuse assets from King's Fall, especially raid lore wise. And the fact that it takes place in the Dreadnought, come on, man. These missions are lazy and half-assed. Sure, we finally get to kill the big bad subjugator that's advertised all over Heresy marketing. If it was actually unique and wasn't something we've been fighting the entire time since day one of entering the Nether, I'd give it some praise, but I'm not. Oh, and we can't forget that we fought a paper-thin version of Oryx's Shade from King's Fall. It can easily be ignored. Like it dies. It's just nothing. It's a nothing burger. The one time they could have had like a mini Oryx fight, they didn't do really anything with it. It was a joke. Ladies and gentlemen, we've come to our conclusion of the narrative journey of episodes, never to be seen again, and we can all collectively say, thank the Iron Lords. You see, after the failure of episode Echoes and the dumpster fire that was episode Revenant's conclusion, we've all wondered if Bungie could be able to do justice to the high Pantheon storyline that they built over the past, 10 years. Did they accomplish that? Well, let's address the elephant in the room right off the bat, the missing voice lines. Let's be honest, I don't care about the Afterstrike. I don't. I'm a consumer. I don't care. I care only about the product that I purchased. That's what most people think. It's the free market. Bungie could have cut Sloan out and limited Ziva Raph's dialogue to the point where you could actually read the dialogue instead of being in the middle of a fucking fight where you can't even multitask and look at the bottom of your screen. You're looking down while trying to stay alive. The delivery is a 100% Bungie's choice, and they fucked up the story delivery. There is no excuses. There's no free passes. It is Bungie's fault, not the Afterstrike. But how the story played out is 100% their fault. And what they did to try to remedy the situation was lazy. They turned on the subtitles by default because that makes it so much better. Classic Bungie, taking the cheapest and easiest way out. So much for a great story when half-assed dialogue is missed. Hell, text-to-speech would have been a better alternative. But you know what? It's funny. This entire year is supposed to be dedicated to wrapping up the story plot that has been around for many years, except Echoes. We don't understand why Bungie felt the need to introduce a lesbian wife beater and make it canon. I don't understand why that was a thing, but I mentioned in my Revenant review that Bungie has a problem that seems to be continuing in Heresy, and that problem is Bungie keeps bringing dead people back. No one in Destiny 2 seems to stay dead, except Amanda Holiday, because fuck her, I guess. Seriously, instead of making new and actually compelling villains, Bungie would just rather recycle them. It's crazy that we've gotten to the point that not only is Bungie just recycling content, they're actually recycling characters at this point. Can't wait to see Riven for the third time in a year. Act 1 story kicks off with us exploring the EDZ for anchors from the Dreadnought, other parts of the galaxy, even though it seems to become like a nothing burger after we do the first mission. Then we venture into the Dreadnought only to see a generic-ass subjugator impel Eris, and the story ends for the act wondering what happens next now that Eris is dead. Oh no, Eris is dead, man. Doesn't that sound like a better story? Unfortunately, Bungie, after all these years, still hasn't learned anything about using characters or death scenes. I don't know who in the narrative department made one of the most brain-dead decisions to remove all suspense and the fear of a main character dying by killing them off and then 2 seconds later showing them that they're actually alive and well. This could have waited several weeks to showcase that Eris was alive. That could have been a massive reveal, but instead they decided, hey, you know what? She's alive. I love that people want to glaze Bungie for storytelling, but I think I've seen better story development about characters in a child's book. Imagine Avengers Infinity War ending with Thanos snapping the population out of existence, but then at the end of the movie, the Avengers snap and bring everyone back. Imagine how shitty that movie would have been. Well, that's Heresy's story in a nutshell. We get a really cool cutscene showcasing the desire of everyone in the story and what makes you think, oh wow, we're gonna have a really cool fleshed out story, right? Right? Act 1 ends with a grand reveal of Oryx. That's right, the Taken King is back. Again. His memory is part of the Echo of Navigation. What does the Echo of Navigation do? No one knows, because the entire time we just identify the Echo as Oryx, since his memory for some reason is linked to the Echo. The Echo, which was created from fragments of the Witness and the Traveler's Light, holding memories of the past. Yet it makes no sense that there is an Echo that specifically holds every memory of the Taken King before his death and would magically show up at the Dreadnought. And I said Dreadnought. I'm not, yeah. I'm sure there's lore in the background that goes into more detail, but who cares outside of Bife? If the core explanation of the MacGuffin isn't in the main story, that's a huge failure. That's one of the reasons why Lightfall is regarded as one of the worst stories in the game, is because the core information is regulated to lore and hidden voice recordings to explain the Veil MacGuffin. The fact that I've played 100 hours or more of this episode, I've done all 3 characters, and I still don't understand why Oryx is returned specifically with all his prior memories in the Echo, is a good enough reason to think that there isn't an actual explanation. It's just Bungie magically using magical storytelling where you just need to tell yourself, believe it makes sense. If you were to tell me that the story that Oryx has been hiding in Bungie servers this entire time, I'd take that as better storytelling than Heresy.
I am Oryx, the Taken King, the first navigator. I rise from the deep. No, Bungie, seriously, why the fuck am I in your servers? I am literally just a memory. What am I supposed to do without hands? Stare at the servers and say, hey, I know how you feel. We're listening to you.
Act 1 ends with a confrontation between the memory of Oryx, Ziva Wrath, but it's not actually Ziva Wrath, it's her personal assistant apparently, and then Savathun, who actually shows up. Oryx immediately finds out he's dead, and siblings start bickering with each other. Ziva wants Oryx back on his throne. Oryx wants to talk to his killer, and Savathun seems like the mature grown-up in this situation. She's like telling everyone to chill the fuck out. We don't need to do this weird hive stuff anymore. Then everyone just kind of dips out. Everyone just TPs, and the subjugator shows up, and everyone they're gone, which is really weird. Both Ziva Wrath and Savathun just leave the Echo without a fight. Like, why? There's no shot Savathun couldn't Nova Bomb the subjugator if that's what made her leave, and she could have left the Echo. Act 2 is pretty much the biggest nothing burger in the story, and it continues to showcase the big problem of Bungie, that they lack the capability of following the simple high school level concept of building a strong beginning, middle, and end of a story. The only 2 things that matter in this entire act is 1, Oryx is now the biggest hype man we've got. Yes, the Taken King is our biggest bro, which is unironically really cool, and it would have been a really badass story if Bungie actually gave the idea the respect it needed and flushed it out more. We go through the entire Court of Blades to prove ourselves, and the entire time Oryx is calling us his hair. He's calling us his champion. We're out here being best buds. The second plot is fighting over the control of the Echo itself. See, Oryx wants us to take over his position so that he can dip out and go to Fundament and do his own thing. Like, he lost, he's dead, he's all about sword logic. He wants to return home and retire like an old man. Meanwhile, Ziva Wrath and Savathun and Eris want to capture the Echo. Eris wants power, Ziva wants her brother back in power, and Savathun just wants everyone to chill the fuck out. And we also make Willbreaker for some reason. I'm not sure if it was Act 1 or Act 2. Either way, it's pretty much just a thrown in MacGuffin to do fetch quests. I'm pretty sure it was used to kill some of the anchors. It was such a MacGuffin, that's why it's so forgettable. Act 3, yes, we're just mowing through the story because that's pretty much what Bungie did. Act 3 starts with Ziva Wrath challenging us. Hell, we got a really sick cutscene with big ass Ziva Wrath throwing blades. And I mean, she's big. She's literally 10 times the size of Oryx in King's Fall. Hell, her sword alone takes half the damn airspace at the Hull Breach location. It's insane that she looks like a god-sized version of the Witness in Salvation's Edge, yet we never once see her in person or fight her personally. Let's introduce a galactic-sized enemy, but do nothing with it. Again, classic Bungie. Act 3 is all about Eris trying to contain the Echo and stop the 2 Hive siblings from gaining control of the Echo. This act is supposed to be a Hive war. Everyone's fighting over the Echo, and in reality, Nothing of significance actually happens. Nothing. We technically had 2 weeks of story, though. I feel like week 2 and 3 were combined, to be honest. But essentially, we stopped Savathun's ritual in her throne world because she's trying to summon the Echo. For some reason, the source of the ritual is Malak's head. You know, Malak from Destiny 1. We got no explanation how Savathun got his head. Again, I said this in the Revenant review, but it seems like bodies and body parts of dead people are just stored everywhere. Like, it doesn't make any sense how we have all these body parts laying around still after all these years. We get no explanation how Malak allows the ritual to summon an Echo from the throne world, from Ascendant realm to a throne world. Even more so, we steal the head. Yeah. In order to make a possible remedy for Salone, even we get zero explanation of what that is, nor do we actually see it happen at the conclusion of the story. It's just something that's said and never revisited. When I tell you Salone is probably the most forgettable characters that you could cut from the story and it wouldn't change a thing, I mean it. So much dialogue is wasted on a character you can't even hear. Granted, the same is for Ziva Wrath, but not to the same degree as Salone. I truly feel if the story focused on the High Siblings and Drifter and Eris, that's all you need. Oh yeah, in the entire story, Savathun is actually very chill with us. I mean, earlier in the story, she pulls us out, to her throne world, asks us, hey, can you stay out of my family affairs? Because family. This entire story, Savathun is probably the most reasonable person. Even in the end, when we finally kill the Echo, the memory of her brother, she's pissed at us, but she doesn't go out of her way to try to kill us. We steal her son's head and we kill her brother's Echo, who she just wanted to store away in the throne world. Meanwhile, she's telling everyone to just be calm. Chill, bro, chill. The entire time, Eris Morn is the villain of the story.
I am the villain of the story.
She wants the Echo for power. She ignores Savathun, steals from her.
Secure once more. It appears the progeny he spoke of was no other than Malak. It has been some time since that name was spoken. Recover it, so that we may learn its secrets.
Tisk, tisk. You're always meddling in other people's affairs. Normally, I admire that type of gumption. It's why we get along. But stealing my son's head? This is below you. This time, you crossed a line.
She wants to wait to the last minute to give up the power so Oryx doesn't jump ship. It's crazy how we walked away feeling bad for the 3 siblings, and we feel like we should just kill Eris again. I would have been thrilled if we just saw the bitch die. I'm sorry, that's what I think about Eris. She's the villain. She should have died and stayed dead. Why is it that Bungie makes all these main women characters unlikable assholes? Why? Hell, even Sloan called Eris out on her bullshit, and she's half taken. It's crazy how Bungie fumbled the ball throughout the episode. Oryx wanted to be our hype guy and then returned to Fundament, but we end up killing him and he dies like a sad guy. He's like, oh, I hope no one forgets me.
At least the stars will remember the shape I gave them.
I actually felt sad for him, We pissed off one of our best allies that helped us kill the witness, and Ziva Wrath still hates us, and even more now. Like, what did this story actually accomplish?
Heresy is about the Hive Pantheon dealing with some new interesting revelations that happen. We want to take the Hive Pantheon and shake up the snow globe. It means that we want to take the existing relationships that we see inside of it and put them through such a stress test that they come out changed.
At least the stars will remember the shape I gave them.
Oryx was brought back only to die again, and nothing actually changed in the status quo. Nothing. Oh, wait, I guess there is the fact that Eris got a new house and Drifter apparently got laid. Yes, thanks to Bungie lore, we got lore nerds telling us we've got confirmed sex. That's right, Eris finally got laid. Too bad for the Drifter, she's already received a stabbing before. The fact that people see the story as the best content we've gotten in years, either one, tells you how bad the storytelling in Destiny has gotten, or two, how much brain rot the Destiny community has succumbed to. The hive war between siblings was more like a high school level fit. There was no urgency, there was no actual threat, and the status quo didn't change at all. What was the impact? What was the resolution? Nothing changed within the Hive Pantheon. The sword logic still exists. Savathun, I guess, is now our enemy again, so sure, we went back to Witch Queen era, I guess. Instead of progressing the story, we just go backwards now. What wrap-up did we achieve? I don't actually believe Bungie understands how to wrap up a story. The story, an abomination, an insult to real fans from the beginning. It was all rushed and half-assed. Characters disrespected, reused, tossed aside. Content pretty much was a glorified overflow of the Pale Heart, but in the Dreadnought to catch those nostalgia berries to give people the illusion that they're getting good content when nostalgia bait is at its finest. I don't rank episodes, but Echoes, I'd give a rank 3, Revan, I'd get a rank 5, and Heresy, I'd give a 7. Story was trash, but at least the weapons and the activities are good enough to carry. I cannot believe Bungie took what should have been a slam dunk and brought a lot of players back, but instead it led to players still staying away from the game. If you think Bungie has learned anything and that Edge of Fate will be any different, boy, do I think Bungie is going to surprise us all, especially considering a lot of the veterans of Bungie were laid off and others stepped away. When I say Bungie is a former shell of themselves, I truly mean it. Episodes are done, and all I can say is I hope seasons will be free. So now I don't have to feel like my money was wasted on bad fan fiction and half-assed story beats.
I swear, my life would be so much happier if you would just disappear from it!
Wait. What are you trying to say here?
I hate you! I hate everything about you! If there was a likability scale between 1 and 10, you'd be negative pi! You've been outlawed in 28 states just so people don't have to talk to you again! If they were to make a clone of you, it would be called Essence of Annoyance! You're Beethoven's Lost Symphony! Death to Joy! On the evolutionary scale, you're the only one that's walking backwards! You're the Surgeon General's warning on every pack of cigarettes! Give me an I! Give me an H! Give me an A-T-E-U! I hate you!
This has been my brutally honest review of episode of Heresy. And until next time, game out.